Chris, it is so wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us the best way you can today. And hopefully you are traveling safe because right now, as we're watching this, you are flying home. And I hope you have safe travels. I appreciate your willingness to take time to talk with us tonight about your farm transition and some of the techniques that you used to help determine who that next generation on your farm was going to be. So thanks and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Um, yeah, so let's see. I wanted to talk about making the change possible. So like a couple of different categories through the process. So making and embracing that change to start with, and how to make that happen. And then also the second part of like sticking with it and setting it up so that you can all stick with it as a group going forward. And then last, I was going to talk about the whole letting go thing and the change and um, the final bit for especially outgoing farmers. So that's my plan. And the first part, making this change or starting down the road of making the transition possible for us was first recognizing that we knew we needed to do it. It was really important. And we started kicking it around really early. Like as I was looking back, it's like it was 20 years, I guess, since we first started thinking and talking about it. So we had only been farming as a business full time for 5 or 6 years before we were actually it was probably like 7 years um, before we started thinking about it. And I think really important to remember, at least for us, was those values that we talked about with training and educating new farmers and the sustainable stewardship of the land and that protecting the land, passing it on to the next generation. That stuff was really, really important, and that really grounded us from the get-go. And so how did we how did we get started? And I think how we got started really was in the having all the folks work for us, and really the process of going through and asking them questions for our interview, to make to see if they would be a good fit for working on our farm. And I think that also helped us think about what would be a good fit going forward as a team for the transition. Um, so I wanted to talk about the interview questions that we developed, and that's, I guess, the yellow handout. And the important thing I think to start with whenever we approached the interview questions was we wanted to share ourselves. So we had to know ourselves. We wanted to share ourselves, share our farm, what we were looking for. So we also shared the job description. And then we also wanted to know about these folks, know about them, know about whether our personalities were going to go okay together, are different enough, but not problematic. We just really wanted to assemble a good team and make sure folks could be on the same page with us. So we would ask, a lot of really general questions, and not really yes and no questions, but questions that would share something about us, but also get more information from them, so we can have a discussion. So we asked open-ended questions like, why do you want to do this, and why you're on our farm, and what kind of expectations do you have, which made us think about what kind of expectations we had. And those expectations could be expectations about ourselves or about the other folks, the employees or the income. And then we asked a lot of questions about the work itself, based on the job description. Could they do the work? What was hard about it? What was bad? Just to kind of get them. Asked about physical labor and abilities. We also asked this great question: what's the hardest thing you've ever done? And people loved that question, partly because it was so unexpected, I think, but also because it really got folks to think. And it was intentionally really open because we just wanted to see what came up, and I think it's important to recognize when you're doing this kind of process that you do want to get to know people on a personal level. It's a relationship that happens forward. So
Chris, I'm wondering
yeah.
if you could just speak more directly into the mic. It's a little hard to hear you sometimes.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, no, that's
Yeah,
okay.
it's
I'll
kind of
I'll,
far
I'll just
away.
say it now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Okay. I'll even hold the phone. Um, yeah. So asking a lot of those questions so that you can get to know each other and yourselves. What's the hardest thing you've ever done? How do you feel about tedious work? How do you feel about chaos? Chaos is a really great discussion point because on a farm there can be a lot of chaos. At least there was on our farm, especially in the middle of the summer, terrible rainstorm, tractors broken down, blah, 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 how it goes. um, and we also ask pointed questions about how people get along and how people expect to interact or even respond, if there's conflict. So, how do you deal with conflict? Also, at what point would you quit? What conditions would make you quit? And that's a great question in a transition process too. Like what kind of situation would make you feel like, this just doesn't work for me, or it's, it's a hard line that you're just not going to cross. And it's really good to know about that, about yourself and about the other folks. And then also at the bottom of that first page, are you comfortable asking questions? I think whether you are or not, just bringing up that question can be really helpful because, yeah, it is hard for some folks to ask questions, but we're all learning and we're all, trying to do our best, but that can be a point of discussion. Yeah, and the other thing about, well, and I mentioned it a little earlier about these interview questions. The important thing was building a team that could work together. And so after asking all this stuff, trying to figure out, well, yeah, is this somebody I can work with? And it's a way to get to know people. So that's like the beginning part of it. And then second part, I would say is sticking with it and making it work. And how do you do that? Like, what's the process? And what helped us in terms of once we've got the team together, we really wanted to support the team. What helped us was having some guidelines, and these were this purple handout, incubating new farmers guidelines. When we were making relationships and agreements with new incubating farmers, this was a great tool for us that helped communication. It also helped us to be more aware of what all the different situations that could come up that might be problematic that we could address head on and proactively. So, yeah, like looking at who are the people that are involved in the agreement and what are the goals of each. I think that's really, really important to suss out, write down, writing down your responses to all this and writing down an agreement that everybody can feel good about and put themselves up. Because, it's great. And recognizing what each party brings to the table. You know, the outgoing farmers are bringing a lot, but incoming farmers are also bringing a lot. And also what is part of the agreement and what isn't. Sussing that out can be really critical, because there can be a lot of assumptions made, and you really spelling it out is a great way to protect everybody. Because yeah, you don't want to assume something and be super angry about it, and the other people weren't even aware of it. Yeah, and figuring out also, I think, just how to be good neighbors in the process of the operation of the farm, and especially if you have an ongoing relationship over time with becoming or outgoing farmers. And with number 6, devil's in the details, write it down, write it down, write it down. I don't think you can write it down too much, to be honest. It helps keep everybody on the same page. I think I said that earlier. Identifying a timeline for each step or for the whole process. You know, things can change, but I think it helps to have to manage expectations around a timeline. And then especially number 8, this was really important for us, especially for people who were working with us over the course of the whole season, normalizing the arc of it. You know, for us, July and August, we called it Heart of Darkness. So it was just a really tough time, just a lot of pressure, and the weather was hard, and get tired and all of that. So yeah, like I said, you want to minimize the ick, but you also, even maybe more importantly, is normalize the ick. It's just going to be icky, and that's okay. And we have to just try not to take things personally, because we know it's going to happen. And then number 9 also is really important, the check-ins. We scheduled those really frequently and just as a regular course of action. We didn't just do it when things came up. And I think that helped us a lot, because it got the team, whatever the team is, in the groove of thinking about what's going well and what could go better, and what part of it was our responsibility and what part of it was something that we needed the other person to address. And so we could bring that to the group or to the people involved as a regular course of action. I think it just helped us to avoid conflict also, because we were addressing things head on. And let's see, it can also be just a great way to connect and hang out, and you make it fun. You can make it fun time. It doesn't have to be a chore always. And then last, number 11, the concept of paying it forward. That was really important for us to communicate with our incubatees, because you know, they could leave a weedy mess for the next people. And I think it gets into it starts to address this idea that we're stewards of the land, and you know, there are going to be other people after us, and it's really important to think about them and to think about the land and go through that process. So that's what I had on the incubating new farmer guidelines that we worked out. And let's see, I would say also other ways to support the process and being able to put yourselves fully into it is to ask questions of a lot of different resources and folks that could help you out. It's complex, and you know, we don't know all this stuff, and that's okay. And so getting as much help and resources, tools as you can. I think, you know, these classes and workshops and stuff that LSP is doing are wonderful in helping to do that, because we didn't use all those tools at the time. Okay, so in summary, just ask for help and use all those resources that you possibly can because they'll they'll be great. They'll help you. Um, yeah, so and let's see. Last, I wanted to talk about the last part of what I see as this three-part process, which is the letting go. And I think that's a really big thing for outgoing farmers. And it's something that new farmers are, would be good to have some sensibility around or sensitivity around that process, especially for folks who, grown up on their farms and, um, maybe had generations on the farms, that there's a lot of deep connection with that. And actually, that coping for change questionnaire exercise I found really interesting because I learned that for change, I do much better with change if I'm making the decision to change. But if other people are making any decisions around that, it can be difficult. But I also think it's really important to recognize that we do deal with change all the time. So I want to encourage people that, you know, uh, letting go and change is a part of farming. We have deaths on the farm, animals, we have crop failures, we have, you know, a lot of may have to stop one kind of enterprise and start another, or, that sort of thing. Um, I think it's important to recognize that those endings can lead to new beginnings, and that's great. That's exciting, and endings are natural, and new beginnings are natural. So it's a process that if we can get into the flow of it, like the flow of the river or whatever, that it can make things easier for us. And yeah, let's see, it's the change involved in the transition process is tricky, and there's a lot of questioning yourself, there's a lot of questioning other people. And we've had a couple of farm transitions over the years, and um, some of them worked well in certain situations, and this other longer term, more involved transition with Emlyn and Cody, our new farmers, was hard, but that was the best thing at that time. And so I think it's really important to explore the whole process and think about what's going to be right for you. And there's no shoulds around any of this, right? You just got to figure out what's going to work for you, and then just try to put yourself behind it in any way that you can. And ultimately, I think for for me, the letting go process was easier knowing that the folks that I really wanted to take over the farm were able to do that. And I really wanted to make sure that that could happen in a good way, and in a way that would set them up for success. And yeah, like my job was to hold that land in a way that I could pass it on to the next folks in the best way possible. So that's what I've got, Karen.
Thank you so much, Chris. No, that is really helpful just hearing from your real perspective. And I remember us talking about if people have questions, we'll capture those and we'll try to get those to you and get the answers back at some point.
Yes, I will be happy, very happy to respond to anybody's questions. No problem.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Good luck.